Hello everyone. RV Educational Institution, Shivananda Sharma Memorial RV College, video lectures and ISR initiative. This is RV College is one of the premier institutes run by the prestigious RV group of institutions, which has come up with this unique initiative to engage the students at the time of this unforeseen medical emergency caused by corona outbreak. For today's session, I have two students named Santosh and Mohin Khan to present you all the topic International Monetary Fund. So we are going to start with Santosh starting his presentation. So Santosh, I'm going to unmute you. Please take it ahead. Okay, Santosh, you can start.
Yeah. Ma'am, next. Okay. Starting with International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund is an organization which works to foster global monetary cooperation or to ensure the stability of international monetary system all around the world. International monetary system, considering it is a system of exchange rates and international payments that actually enables the countries to transact with ease. International Monetary Fund plays the role of a stabilizer who stabilizes the international monetary system of the world or its member countries. Now, starting with the establishment of International Monetary Fund, it was established in the year 1945 and its headquarters is at Washington, D.C., US. Apart from this, as of October 2019, it has 189 member countries and Ms. Kristalina Georgia is the managing director and the chairperson of International Monetary Fund. And one more important point to be considered here is the financial year of the International Monetary Fund, which is May 1st to April 30th. And also considering the monetary wing of India, the RBI's financial year is from July 1st to June 30th. Ma'am, next slide. Now, coming to the point why International Monetary Fund was established. The International Monetary Fund was conceived at the UN conference in Bretton Woods, US in July 1944. You would notice that most of the organizations have been established during World War II, and the main purpose of establishing such organizations during the world wars is that the consequences of world wars was so large that the countries wanted something to stabilize, or they want to establish a system that would not repeat any circumstances wherein the countries would face such depression in the future. Now, it was started by 44 countries at the conference, which sought to build a framework for economic cooperation to avoid a repetition of competitive devaluation, as IMF is associated with the monetary transaction. So not to repeat or to avoid the repetition of the competitive devaluation, which was contribution to the Great Depression of 1930s. We all have noticed that the Great Depression had crashed the economies of many countries all around the world, starting with the New York Stock Exchange crashing down as well. So to avoid all this, the 44 countries decided to build a framework for the economic cooperation, and then the IMF came into existence. Now, as I mentioned before, most of the international organizations were established during the Second World War because countries at that particular point wanted to bring ease to the world and wanted to stabilize the economy. Ma'am, next. Now, starting with the functions of International Monetary Fund, the first point is exchange stability. It is one of the foremost and important function of International Monetary Fund. It has to maintain exchange stability and thereby to discourage any fluctuations in the rate of exchange. The fund ensures such stability by making necessary arrangements like enforcing declaration as par value of currency of all members in terms of gold and US dollars. And also it enforces the devaluation criteria wherein the currency prices and everything is determined. The second one, eliminating balance of payments disequilibrium. Balance of payments is something which determines the GDP of any nation, and IMF plays a very important role in maintaining it. The fund is helping member countries in eliminating or minimizing the short period equilibrium of balance of payments either by selling or lending foreign currencies to the members. The fund also helps its members towards removing the long-term disequilibrium in their balance of payments. Next. Determination of par value. The International Monetary Fund enforces the system of determination of par values of the currencies of the member countries. Under the revised articles, the members are given autonomy float or exchange rates as per demand supply conditions in the exchange market and also at the par internal prices. Next, stabilize economies. The IMF has an important function to advise member countries on various economic and monetary matters and thereby help the countries to stabilize their economies. Next, credit facilities. IMF is maintaining various borrowing and credit facilities so as to help the member countries in correcting disequilibrium in the balance of payments. Say, for example, in the current situation, IMF has been playing an important role in helping out countries during this coronavirus outbreak by providing funds, and also not only in this emergency situations, there are so many countries which has a weaker section than India all around the world, wherein these organizations will be providing credit facilities to cope up their economy. Next, maintaining balance between demand and supply of currency. It is one of the important functions of the IMF to maintain balance between demand and supply of various currencies. According to the International Monetary Fund, it can declare a currency as scarce currency which is in great demand and can increase its supply by borrowing it from the country concerned or by purchase the same currency in exchange of gold. Say for example US dollars. What these IMF do, uh, it is considered as scarce currency, and what they do is they purchase US dollars from uh, United States and keep it as reserves for further use. Next, maintenance of liquidity. To maintain liquidity of its resources is one more important function of International Monetary Fund. There is a provision for the member countries to borrow from International Monetary Fund by surrendering their own currencies in exchange. Again, for according accumulation of less demand currencies with the fund, the borrowing countries are directed to repurchase their own currencies by repaying its loans in convertible currencies. Next, technical assistance. The International Monetary Fund is performing an useful function to provide technical assistance to the member countries. Um, there are two types of technical assistance which they provide. Firstly, by granting the member countries the services of its specialists and experts, and secondly, by sending the outside experts. Now, and considering IMF and India, IMF has played an important role in Indian economy. IMF had provided economic assistance from time to time to India and also have provided appropriate consultancy in determination of various policies in the country. The same way, there are so many countries which are popping up with their economy with the help of International Monetary Fund and many other organizations all around the world. And now Moin Khan will continue the session.
moment now, you can start.
So, as said about the what is IMF and everything else, can I have the next slide, ma'am? Okay, so I'll be talking to you guys about the finances of IMF. So, how does IMF raise funds? What is the source of funds for IMF? So, most resources of IMF loans are provided by member countries primarily through their payment of quotas. So, to be a part of IMF or to become a member of IMF, the countries have to come up with official reserves. Each member contributes to its quota through SDRs, goals, or currency. So, what is SDR? SDR, Special Drawing Rights, is an international reserve asset created by IMF in the year 1969 to supplement its member countries' official reserves. So, SDR is not a currency, but it is a unit of IMF, and this can only be held by the IMF, its member countries, and designated stakeholders. So IMF financing arrangement with its member countries are denominated in SDRs. So the total global allocations are currently about SDR 204 billion. So India's current quota in the IMF is SDR 5,821.5 million, making it the 13th largest quota holding country at IMF and giving it shareholding of 2.44%. So let me continue with what is quota. So how is quota calculated? Calculation of quota is generally based on weighted average of GDP of the particular country, which is to be considered as 50%, and 30% of openness, and 15% of economic variability, and 5% of international reserves. So value of SDR. How is value of SDR being calculated? Using the basket of major currencies which are selected due to the importance in the world's trading and financial system. So these are referred to the freely usable currencies. So value is calculated on daily basis and the interest rate is determined on weekly basis. So the main five currencies in composition of SDRs are firstly US dollar, then euro, N, British pound, and renminbi. So this is Chinese currency recently added to it. The executive board of IMF reviews the composition of SDR basket every 5 years. So can I have the next slide, ma'am? Okay. So there's a slide over here which all of you can have a glance at. So how does IMF lend money, and according to which sources, and what is the format of lending money? So IMF is able to lend about $1 trillion to its member countries. Okay, so first line is can I have the previous? Okay, so quotas. So firstly, it comes to quotas. Based on the quotas, this is in normal times, IMF can provide funds to the member countries based on the quotas, which is minimal funds, which the country does not require a lot of funds. So secondly, it is multilateral. The second ahead, when if there is a short, if the country has a fall short of money of the, or the IMF is not able to provide sufficient money, it goes to the next one, that is multilateral borrowing arrangements, which can be activated through new arrangements to borrow. So laterally, bilateral borrowing is a supplement to multilateral borrowing. So this is how the $3 trillion is being segregated. So in the next slide, okay, role played by quotas. So we have the first thing as subscription. So as discussed, every country needs to pay a minimal amount of subscription to become a member of IMF. So this minimum amount is to be paid fully at the time of becoming a member of the IMF. So the subscription can be segregated into two parts. So the amount of subscription, 25% in SDRs or widely accepted currencies such as USDs, and the remaining 75% in the country's own currency. So this is how the subscription works Similarly, like when you join any club or something such that, you need to pay a subscription to become a member. So the next one is voting power. So basic vote plus additional vote for each SDR, 1 lakh of quota, and after the year 2008 reform, it is fixed with number of basic vote at 5.502%. Currently, India has the voting right, which is 2.65%, and the quota at 2.77%. So largely, voting rights are determined by the quotas. So the third thing is access to financing. So the amount of financing a member can obtain from IMF is based on its quotas. For example, under the standby and extended arrangement of members, a member can borrow up to 145% of its quota annually, and 435% cumulatively. So this is how the quotas play a major the subscription voting power and access to financing. Can I have the next slide now? Since we've already discussed about how IMF is helping out the countries in this current situation of coronavirus outbreak, so these are the schemes under which IMF helps the countries. So firstly, we would go with emergency financing, the rapid credit facility. The rapid credit facility is nothing but it is a facility which provides concessional financial assistance with limited conditionality to low income countries. So this is rapid credit facility, and rapid financial financing instrument. Rapid financing instrument provides rapid financial assistance to all members of the all member countries facing an urgent balance of payment need, such as the current situation of corona outbreak, to respond to health disasters. So next we have catastrophe containment and relief fund. The IMF can provide debt relief grants to the poorest and most vulnerable countries to help address public health disasters. Similarly, as the rapid credit facility and rapid financing instrument. Next, we have augmentation under existing programs. The IMF can rapidly augment existing programs to accommodate urgent needs arising from coronavirus, which is recently been developed. Next slide, ma'am. So the new financing arrangement, the IMF can provide support through a new loan under its existing standard facilities. And we have capacity development. The IMF is closely engaged with the authorities of affected member countries, working to reprioritize technical assistance and training activities. So these are the schemes under which IMF is currently functioning to help the countries with the current situation. The next slide, ma'am. So the last slide of this session is the difference between IMF and World Bank. Since both IMF and World Bank deals with money, there is a bit of difference which I'd be explaining in this particular slide. So the main function of IMF is maintaining economic stability throughout the world of different countries. And whereas the World Bank promotes economic stability throughout the world. And the size of IMF is really very small compared to the World Bank. It is like less than 25% of the World Bank, which is 2,400 staff members, whereas the World Bank works with 10,000 plus staff members. And coming to organizational structure, IMF has a single unitary organization of 4 credit lines, having connections with the banks of different countries, whereas the World Bank is a bilateral organization with 2 major institutes, IBRD and IDA, which is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and International Development Association. So the next one, constituents. The IMF has, as per the current status and current news of 2020, IMF consists of 189 members countries, whereas the World Bank, IBRD has 189 members and IDA has 173 members. Operations: provide advice and assistance. The IMF provides advice and assistance to the countries, member countries, and other countries, whereas the World Bank facilitates only lending of funds to the countries. Main objective: deals macroeconomics and financial sectors. So macroeconomics over here can be considered as unemployment and inflation, such stuff. So which affects the world's economy in a larger scale. Whereas World Bank's main objective is deals with lending, similarly as functions as facilitating lending. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope everybody has understood whatever they just spoke about. So IMF is one of the institutions globally which deals with maintaining economic stability. So if the people can recall the international monetary system, we read about Bretton Woods conference. So when there was World War going on, there was no stability in the currency rates or the exchange rates. So they did a conference at the Bretton Woods and they came up with these two twin institutions, IMF and World Bank. So thank you, Santosh and Mohin Khan, to give us a glimpse and a detailed information on what is IMF and what is constituted about. Thank you, everyone. Let's join again for the World Bank video or the video lecture. Thank you, everyone.